up? It's cinemashogun here, and in the early days of this Russia-Ukraine conflict, before the invasion even begun, as Putin was amassing his troops on the border of Ukraine, I was worried. I was worried about what Putin may do, constantly contemplating over the possibilities of what Putin and Russia might do next, as my fingers were crossed that they didn't do anything to trigger a nuclear war with NATO. But now, here we are. This conflict has been raging on for over a year. And now, I worry less about Putin, and I'm worrying more about NATO. Now, don't get me wrong. If you know me, you know I am Team America. Team America, fuck yeah. Here to save the fucking day, yeah. If you haven't seen the movie Team America, please do yourself a favor and go watch it. It is hilarious. But anyways, let's get serious. If you know me, you know I am Team America. But just because I choose the side of my home country doesn't mean that I can't see what's actually happening out here. As I am telling you right now, the past 2 or 3 weeks have been alarming. This is the most concerned I've been about this conflict in Ukraine since it started. This is the most concerned I've been about this entire conflict, because it looks like we're moving towards war with Russia. And I know some of you can say, well, doesn't it look like we've been headed towards war with Russia for a long time? You could say that. That's fair. But up until now, it seems like it was on the table. It could happen. It might not happen. For a few months there, it seemed as if this conflict in Ukraine was winding down. Ukraine is losing. I don't care what anyone tells you. The facts are Ukraine is losing. It's not even close. And I thought there was a possibility that this could end somehow. That Russia will take control over the areas that it has already taken control over. Maybe some type of deal will be worked out, and maybe we can move on from this conflict. Especially seeing as there's another conflict happening in the Middle East. And a lot of people don't know that the U.S. is preparing for war in South America as we speak. But that's a conversation for another day. But for a while there, it looked like there was a possibility that, I don't want to say things could blow over, but it looked like there was a possibility that things could die down. I don't know what has changed. I don't know if people's true colors are just now showing, if people's true intentions are just now showing, but something has changed drastically over the past few weeks, and we are heading full steam ahead into war with Russia. Now, I always talk about this, I always say this, I always preach this. Let me do it again. You have to pay attention to how these politicians, how these world leaders, you have to pay attention to how they word things. You really need to pay attention to their use of words. I don't care how stupid and idiotic you think these politicians and government officials are. They understand the power of words. The power of words is usually what got them to where they're at today. They understand how to weaponize words. They understand how to word things in a certain way that will make you more concerned about something that you shouldn't be concerned about. They understand how to word things in a way that will make you less concerned about something that you should be concerned about. And over the past few weeks, politicians, Joe Biden, other politicians as well, the defense secretary, they keep calling Ukraine a NATO ally, right? Now we know that any strike against a NATO country is considered a strike against America. If you attack one NATO country, all of NATO is coming for you, right? Supposedly. That's what the deal is, right? But now they're starting to use this word NATO allies when referring to other countries that aren't in NATO. And it's gone from being, an attack on NATO is an attack on all countries involved in NATO, to an attack on a NATO ally is an attack on all of NATO. Now, that use of words, it might not seem like a lot to you, but here's what's going on here. They're trying to reshape history. They're trying to reshape NATO as a whole in a way. Right under our eyes. They're trying to make it to where, an attack on a NATO ally equals NATO has to go to war. Now, anyone can be a NATO ally. You could just say, hey, you're a NATO ally today. Let's go to war behind this. And that's kind of what's happening here. Slowly but surely, they're starting to call Ukraine, it's a NATO ally country. It's not officially NATO, but it's a NATO ally. And now we have people like Joe Biden, people like the Secretary of Defense. They're claiming that NATO has to defend its allies. But when they say that NATO has to defend its allies, they're not just talking about other countries that are in NATO. They're talking about whatever country they consider an ally today, right? So there has been some comments made by our president, by other politicians, like I said, by defense officials, people in the Pentagon, you name it. And they keep calling Ukraine a NATO ally. And in the same sentence, the same breath, they talk about the importance of protecting NATO allies. Also, not too long ago, the Secretary of Defense came out demanding more money for Ukraine, basically saying, hey, if y'all don't pass this, if y'all don't allow us to keep sending these millions and billions to Ukraine, then we're going to send your kids to die in Ukraine. He straight up said it. Maybe not in the way I said it, but he said, hey, if you're not going to give us money to send to Ukraine, we're going to send your kids. And it wasn't like a what if scenario. It wasn't like he said, well, there's a possibility that if we don't send them money, that we may have to go to war with Russia. No, they straight up said, hey, if you don't allow us to keep sending money, we're going to send your kids to fight in Ukraine. Why? Why is that necessary? Now, like I said, in the early days, I was worried about what Putin was going to do. And I'm still somewhat worried. But as of right now, I don't see any indication that Putin is going to push further than Ukraine. I don't put it past them. I still view it as a possibility. I'm not a Putin Russian fanboy by any stretch of the means. I know some people have become Putin fanboys. I don't get it. I don't understand why. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Russia is doing something that they're not. If Russia wanted to make a move towards another country, they could have by now. I don't think Russia has to wait to conquer all of Ukraine before they make a move on another country. But like I said, I do believe there's a possibility that Russia can keep pushing. It's always a possibility. If anyone tells you it's not a possibility, they're not being honest. But at the same time, it doesn't look likely right now. There's no indication that Putin wants to do that. NATO, on the other hand, they're becoming more and more aggressive. They're still trying to get Ukraine into NATO. And as we speak, they're having meetings about allowing Ukraine to join the European Union, which that in itself will be considered an act of war against Russia. So instead of trying to out the fire, if you will, instead of trying to make things better, NATO is going out of its way to agitate Russia. It's going out of its way to poke the bear. There's no need for Ukraine to join the European Union. There's no need for Ukraine to join NATO. But they want them in. So then they could use that as an excuse to go to war with Russia. And let me tell you right now, there are countries over there, they're acting really froggy, okay? They're pushing a lot of buttons. They're acting tough. But in the long run, guess what's going to happen? These European countries might allow Ukraine into the European Union. They might bark at Putin, bark at Russia, but a lot of them are all bark, no bite, because they know they'll do the barking like a little chihuahua, and then America is going to do the biting. America is the pit bull. America is the Rottweiler. America is the Doberman, the German Shepherd. While these other European countries, they're the Taco Bell Chihuahua. And I have nothing against these European countries. I love the people over there. The countries are beautiful. The people running these countries are idiots. Hey, we could say the same thing for our country too, right? But I do take issue with these countries pushing and prodding and poking Russia, knowing that when ish hits the fan, America is the one that's going to have to go over here and do most of the fighting. America is going to be the one spending most of the money. We're going to fit the bill. Our kids are going to go over there and die. And now this new guy over there in Poland, whew, and I love the Polish people. Polish people are really cool. Really cool people. But this new leader over there in Poland, oh boy, let's just say that I think he may be the driving force that leads us into nuclear warfare. And I'm not exaggerating. I want to read to you his recent comments. Only a united West can help Ukraine win, Tusk says. Speaking in the Polish parliament, Donald Tusk also underscored the importance of continued Polish support for Ukraine. We also need to speak with one voice about Ukraine. This must also unite us. The attack on Ukraine is an attack on all of us. We will demand full mobilization of the West to help Ukraine. I can no longer listen to politicians who want to talk about being tired of the situation in Ukraine. They tell President Zelensky that they are tired of the situation. I will demand help for Ukraine from day one. The Ukrainians are fighting for something extremely important. By some strange coincidence, politicians who attack the foundations of democracy are anti-Ukrainian. Only a united West can help Ukraine win in the fight for democratic values. In a few dozen hours, I will be going to Brussels hoping that we will convince our allies to defend democratic values and Ukraine against Russian oppression. So this dude is calling for the full mobilization of NATO forces against Russia. Straight up saying, hey, I'm going to Brussels and I'm going to try to convince my peers, my counterparts, I'm going to try to convince other world leaders that we must mobilize our armies against Russia. So where do you think this is headed, folks? They're already referring to Ukraine as the NATO ally that's about to become part of the European Union, and we're going to let them in all of the clubs. So then we can act like an attack on Ukrainian soil is an attack on our soil as well. So therefore we'll have an excuse to go to war with Russia, a war that they've been wanting for so long. They've been wanting it for so long. And they're going to get it. Now, folks, hopefully none of this happens. And I don't know what would happen if America is under new leadership after the next election. But under the current administration, the way things are going right now, we're definitely going to war with Russia. It's only a matter of time. Ukraine is basically being used to try to dull down the Russian army. They're going to let the Ukrainians fight for as long as they can. Ukraine is starting to call up men to fight in their war who are like 50 and 60 years old. They got senior citizens out here fighting Russia now. That's how bad it is. But NATO is going to use Ukraine as a tool to continue to try to wear down the Russian army. But in reality, what's happening is the Russian army is gaining a lot of experience. Whereas when it comes time to fight Russia, we're going to be sending a bunch of inexperienced kids to fight these people who are battle-hardened. And I'm telling you right now, the U.S. military, do you see some of these people? We're going to send a bunch of dudes in dresses that like to play with makeup to go fight Russia. And half of these European countries aren't any better. I don't believe that these European countries have the fight in them that they once had. Because Poland, a lot of these other countries, they were forces to be reckoned with in the past. Resilient. Nowadays, it seems as if most of Europe has been bent over backwards and they're okay with losing their way of life. They're okay with their culture being replaced. I don't know if most Europeans have that fighting spirit, and I can say the same for America. I don't feel like the fighting spirit is here anymore. And Russia, I'm sure they have more spirit than we do. But that's what's happening right now, folks. It's concerning, and like I said, it's the way that they word things. They word things the way they do for a reason. It's hard to explain, but if you know what I'm talking about, then you know. And if you learn to start paying attention to how they word things, it will be easier for you to see what's coming down the pipeline. Because the hints are put out there in the way that they talk, in the words that they use. It's not a mistake. You don't all of a sudden hear all of these politicians using certain words and all of a sudden referring to Ukraine as a NATO ally for no reason. It's because they're starting to go ahead and try to get it played in your mind. They're implanting the thought in your head already. NATO ally, NATO ally, NATO ally. So when we go over there and fight, oh, we're here to defend NATO allies. Messed up situation. It's something that can be avoided. That's the worst part, folks. It can be easily avoided. But not only are they not trying to avoid it, it looks as if they're trying to provoke it. And in the long run, we lose. I want you to understand that. we lose in the long run. And when I say we, I don't mean America. I don't mean NATO. I don't mean Poland and your country and your country. I mean we, as in regular, everyday people who are just trying to live our lives. We're the ones that are going to lose. If nuclear war breaks out, who do you think is going to be wiped out? It's going to be me and you. The politicians are going to be at Mark Zuckerberg's underground cave in Hawaii, partying it up. Okay? They got their plans. They're going to be safe. They're going to be okay. They know that. The powers that be, the leaders that are spearheading this charge into nuclear warfare, they're doing so while also feeling safe and comfortable, knowing that they have plans set up for if this does go down. But I could talk about this all day. I just want you all to start paying attention. And don't be surprised about what's to come. Let me know your thoughts, though, down in the comments below. If you're feeling generous and you want to donate to the channel, you can do so directly via CashApp. I will have my CashApp in the pinned comment of this video, or you can send donations via Super Thanks. Or while you're here, you can help the channel. It's totally free to like the video, share the video, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and all of that good stuff. But with all of that being said, I'll talk to you all soon in the next one.